Well, welcome everyone. Really appreciate everyone's time and joining us this afternoon to attend the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names and the California State Association of Counties webinar talking about the implementation of AB 2022 and the replacement of offensive and derogatory names on geographic features and places within the state of California. It looks like we have a good number of folks who have logged in for the webinar, and so we will get started. As a quick agenda for today's webinar, we have prepared a PowerPoint presentation to kind of go through the new law in AB 2022, introduce the committee and the work that we're trying to do in this space. And after we get through the PowerPoint presentation, then we'll have an opportunity for questions and comments and discussion on what was shared. While we are going through the PowerPoint, please feel free to use the Q&A feature in the webinar, and folks who are joining me as a fellow panelist will do our best to try to answer those in real time through that Q&A feature, but then we can also take some time for questions and answers after the PowerPoint presentation. So with that, we will get started. So our first speaker is Supervisor Eddie Crandell, and I'm looking to see if Supervisor Crandell has been able to join us just yet. I am not seeing him at the moment. I know that he's juggling a very full and schedule here today, and so when he does join us, we will jump back to the slide and have an opportunity for him to share some remarks on the work. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand it off to our chairperson of the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names, Richard Liss. So Chairperson Liss, she would like to provide some opening remarks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Richie Liss, the current chair for the Kagan Committee. So I'm a senior environmental scientist with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and work out of the Redding office and deal with like 7 northern counties of California. And welcome to our webinar. Our committee's been working hard on trying to implement this AB 2022. And so we really appreciate everyone who's coming and participating, and any comments and questions you have will help us figure out how to navigate this bill and get it implemented successfully to everybody's satisfaction. So thank you for participating today and welcome. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Richie. We'll next hear from Executive Secretary Raymond Hitchcock, who serves as the Executive Secretary for the Native American Heritage Commission.
Thank you very much, Geneva and Chairperson Lees. I'm Raymond Chucky Hitchcock. I'm of Miwok Anishinaabe descent. I'm a tribal member of Wilton Rancheria, and I'm coming to you from the tribal offices right here in Elk Grove at Wilton Rancheria's office, because I had a tribal consultation today. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Native American Heritage Commission, as Geneva said. One of the things that as a Kagan panelist and member that we can be of assistance, the Heritage Commission that is providing lists of tribes in your particular areas, in your county or in your city. If name changes come up and you need to consult with those tribes, we hold those, what's called a contact list within the Native American Heritage Commission. So when you do have the request for geographical names, you'll be reaching out to the commission to get the list of those tribes to consult with. They might not be in your backyard, they may be in another county over, but if we look at it from Aboriginal cultural territory, which sometimes covers for a single tribe, like Wilton Rancheria right here in Elk Grove, our tribal territory covers over 5 different counties. Not the complete counties as base county lines. It's more by, geographical features, whether they're rivers, mountain ranges, the Delta in our case. So we'll be an integral part moving forward once you start to identify those specific names in your territory, and the commission can help you get in contact with the appropriate culturally affiliated tribes for your specific area. So we look forward to partnering with you guys, answering your questions, and being a good liaison to help further this cause on, changing some of the derogatory names throughout California. So, thank you.
Well, and thank you, Secretary Hitchcock, for those opening remarks, and really appreciate all the work that the Native American Heritage Commission has done in support with Kagan and the implementation of AB 2022, and your offer to support our partners here today on our tribal consultations and how to move forward in this work. So, Wado, and thank you. All right, and then I'm very honored to have the opportunity to connect with you all today. My name is Geneva E.B. Thompson. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation in she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Deputy Secretary for Tribal Affairs at the California Natural Resources Agency. And I also serve as ex officio member to the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names, and have the pleasure of working with all the individuals who are joining us today for this webinar and this panel discussion, and really looking forward to partnering with you all on the implementation of AB 2022. I also wanted to just re-echo our thanks to the California State Association of Counties for their partnership in hosting this webinar today. I know a lot of you all work closely with CSAC, and really appreciate the opportunity to share some information with you all and partner on this exciting work. So Wado, and thank you again to CSAC for co-hosting today's webinar. So we'll spend the rest of the PowerPoint kind of going through what the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names is looking at in the implementation of AB 2022. So first we thought we would kick it off by just sharing a little bit about what is the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names. And as Chairperson List has already mentioned, the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names provides recommendation and advice to the United States Board of Geographic Names on proposed names to be used on maps published by federal agencies within the state of California. So essentially, this committee reviews proposals for name changes on geographic features, works closely with tribes, local governments, counties, cities, communities, and identifying appropriate names for these features, and then makes those recommendations to the federal agency who's in charge of making those final decisions and finalizing all new names for geographic features. The committee consists of representatives from the Department of Water Resources, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Conservation, the Department of Forest and Fire Protection, the Native American Heritage Commission, the California State Library, and then the California African American Museum. And then we also have a long list of ex officio members. So we have representatives from different caucuses in the state legislature, as well as advisors from federal agencies and the U.S. Board of Geographic Names. So we're a small but mighty committee, and very excited to partner with you all in the review and identification of names with geographic features within your all's territories and jurisdictions. The U.S. Board of Geographic Names, as mentioned before, is that federal body that was created in 1890 and was established by public law in 1947 to maintain a uniform geographic name usage throughout the federal government. The BGN compromises has representatives from federal agencies that have expertise in geographic information, population, ecology, and management of public lands. And the BGN shares its responsibilities with the Secretary of Interior and promulgates official geographic feature names with local attributes, as well as promulgates the principles, policies, and procedures which govern the use of domestic names, foreign names across the federal government, right? And so this is the federal agency that Kagan partners with and works with in the review of new names for geographic features in the state of California. And again, this federal agency is that kind of final decision-making authority in that work. So the bill that we're looking forward to talking with you all today is AB 2022. This is Assemblymember Ramos's bill and was signed into law on September 23rd of 2022. and declared the term, and I apologize for using this term. I will say it once, and then we'll be using it, calling it the SQ word from here on out, but has declared the term squaw a racist and derogatory term that has historically been used as an offensive ethnic, racial, and sexist slur, particularly towards Indigenous women. And so because of the weight behind that word and the offensiveness of the word, Kagan has been using SQ as a way of understanding and signifying that this word has hurt and pain associated with it, especially to tribal communities. And so AB 2022, in declaring the term a derogatory term, has tasked the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names to implement the bill and establish procedures on determining or identifying where these SQ terms are in our geographic features and in our places, and then working collaboratively with you all on identifying replacement names for this term on our geographic features and places across the state. So a little background on the work in the identification and replacement of SQ terms on our geographic features. In November 2021, Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland issued Secretary Order 3404, which also declared the SQ term derogatory and mandated its removal from all geographic features through that federal process that we introduced. All right, and so the federal government went through a pretty extensive effort to identify and then replace those SQ terms on those federal maps. And I'm sure that many of you had an opportunity to connect with the federal government on that and worked through that process. On the state side, we now have Assembly Bill 2022, which is looking at those places and geographic features that's not under the US BGN's process, and identifying those SQ terms and then working through that process on how to replace that term. The agency, as well as Kagan, has again those additional duties to implement AB 2022, and is now in the process of developing those procedures and having that infrastructure in place to start receiving the identification of those terms. And as folks who have read the bill or who will read the bill, it's pretty clear that this is going to be a collaborative process, working in collaboration with local governments, working with state agencies across California, partnering with California Native American tribes in the identification of places that contain this term, and then the identification of appropriate replacement names for the SQ term. So really, partnership is key for this work, and really do appreciate you all being here today and being part of this partnership. So as you'll see in the legislation, there are some key terms that are really important for all of us to kind of think about when we're working on implementing this legislation. So the first term that you'll see is a geographic feature. And this is a term that was included in AB 2022 for this work. Folks who have participated in the US BGN process will know that the BGN process has a slightly different definition of geographic features, but for the purposes of AB 2022, geographic feature means any location or publicly owned structure in the state, including but not limited to navigable waters of the state, geographic features, parks, state or local roads, bridges, and publicly owned buildings. AB 2022 also defines place as any natural geographic feature or street, alley, or other road within the jurisdiction of the state or political subdivision. And then the law also defines a public agency as any state agency, local governing body, and any other political subdivision of the state. And so the public agencies here are tasked by the law to do this identification of the SQ terms and are tasked by the law to consult with California Native American tribes, local communities, and identify those replacement names for these SQ terms. And then lastly, the legislation also provides a definition of formal consultation, which means meaningful and timely process of seeking, discussing, and considering carefully the views of others in a manner that is cognizant of all parties' cultural values, and where feasible, seeking agreement. Consultation between government agencies and Native American tribes shall be conducted in a way that is mutually respectful of each party's sovereignty. Consultation shall also recognize the tribe's potential needs for confidentiality with respect to places that have traditional tribal cultural significance. And so these are kind of the key definition terms that are laid out in the law, and really encourage folks to keep these in mind as we move forward in implementation of AB 2022 together. So for the timeline of this work, AB 2022 has some set timelines to help us keep moving forward in a good way and getting this work done. The first timeline that we really wanted to highlight for folks today is that July 1st, 2023 timeline, which the AB 2022 has directed all public agencies to identify and file a report to KAGAN with all SQ names within their jurisdiction. And so again, that's any geographic feature or place name as defined by the new law that contains SQ in the name needs to be reported to KAGAN using our, we have a Microsoft Forms that we put together as a way of collecting that information and collecting those reports. And we're going to kind of walk folks through that Microsoft Forms later in this PowerPoint. So you all can kind of see the reports that we're looking for and by that July 1st deadline. For folks who are ready to go and excited to start identifying replacement names, we really encourage your public agency to start reaching out to tribes and begin those consultations. You know, it's important to have early, often and meaningful consultation with tribes on these decisions, and the sooner you can get started, the sooner tribes can be partner with you and start working on appropriate replacement names for these SQ terms. So really encourage that. We also have our draft procedures on how we are going to navigate the implementation of AB 2022. We have those draft procedures ready to go, and we'll be sending those out for public comment later today or sometime tomorrow, just as soon as we can hit that send button. And we're really hoping that you all will take a look at that, read through them, see what makes sense, and would really appreciate any comments or suggestions for improvement by July 15th. We're looking forward to partnering folks on this, and so we want to make sure that our procedures are clear and are helpful for you all as we navigate this space and work on implementing this new law. So really encourage any suggestions for improvement by July 15th, and look for an email from our KAGAN email address here soon with that information. The next step on our timeline is that we are hoping to adopt these procedures at the next KAGAN meeting, which is scheduled for August 4th. So again, really encourage getting those comments in by July 15th, so we can have a little time to update that and get those moving forward. And then by January 1st, the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names is going to complete the review of all the reports that public agencies have sent in, and identify the full and final list of all SQ named geographic features and places. We'll publish that on our website, and we'll have that information available so everyone will know what places contain this term, and to start moving forward on identifying those replacement names. At this January 1st date, that's when we really, it's going to be essential for public agencies to start consulting with tribes no later than this January 1st date. And so we'll have that full list. Folks will know what the universe is of all the names that need to be changed, and really encourage partnership with tribes and identification of those replacement names. Moving on, July 1st, 2024, that this is the deadline that the law requires public agencies to submit their replacement names to KAGAN after engaging in formal consultation with tribes, after working with local communities and identifying the best replacement name for these features. So that July 1st, 2024 deadline is important to know that you all have to navigate your processes in identifying and selecting a replacement name for all the SQ geographic features and places within your all's jurisdiction. And so that July 1st is that deadline to have those replacement names submitted to KAGAN. By October 1st, KAGAN will complete its review and vote on proposed replacement names, all with the goal of having all SQ named geographic features and places to have their replacement names identified and adopted by January 1st, 2025. And so that is the deadline that AB 2022 has placed on having all SQ names on geographic features and places across the state replaced by that January 1st, 2025. And then public agencies will have the opportunity to update their signage, markers, and maps moving forward. So the key areas of collaboration really are identifying those SQ names, engaging in formal consultation with California Native American tribes regarding the replacement names for those those names, going through public engagement and comment process, and then looking to the future on identification of other derogatory names moving forward. So implementation moving forward. Again, we talked about this a little bit already in the timeline, but really wanted to highlight that the first important deadline that we have before us is July 1st, 2023, of having all public agencies submit all geographic features and places containing the SQ term in their names to KAGAN. Excuse me. So you will see in the bottom of this slide is our Microsoft Forms survey link. I believe we're going to try to put that in the chat as well, and so folks can have that link easily accessible. And then we'll be going through that survey a little bit later in the PowerPoint, but really wanted to highlight the importance of this July 1st deadline. So when we are looking at the replacement procedures for all SQ names, the AB 2022 really seeks to have public agencies to identify appropriate replacement names within their jurisdiction. But before identifying those replacement names, public agencies are required to engage in formal consultation with California Native American tribes to determine what is the most appropriate replacement name. Law kind of provide some guidance on how to think about identifying those replacement names, and with the directive to prioritize names that honor and recognize tribes, cultures, and indigenous languages specific to the geographic region in question. This law, requires us to look at place names that were previously used by Native American tribes or place names that were proposed by tribes through the appropriate enactment or resolution, right? And so through consultation, public agencies can connect with California Native American tribes to either understand how the tribes named a particular feature or place pre-contact, can work with tribes to identify if there's a appropriate name using indigenous languages to capture an appropriate replacement name, or really looking to tribal leadership to work with their cultural committees or their members in identifying what an appropriate replacement name is, and then informing public agencies on what the tribe would like to see this place be renamed. And so the goal really is through early, often and meaningful consultation to collaboratively problem solve and collaboratively work together on identifying appropriate replacement names for these geographic features and places. After we receive the replacement names from all the public agencies, Kagan will be reviewing and voting on those replacement names with having the work concluded by October 1st, 2024. Kagan may reject a proposed replacement name if the committee determines that it is not appropriate, derogatory, offensive, or does not fulfill the legislative intent of prioritizing names that honor tribes, cultures, and indigenous languages within the specific region. And again, we'll be looking to see the collaboration and the partnership with tribes in the identification of those replacement names. If the public agency fails to provide a replacement name by July 1st, 2024, or provided a name that is deemed to be offensive or derogatory or otherwise inappropriate, AB 2022 directs Kagan to solicit proposals and input from tribes, public agencies, and members of the public, and then determine an appropriate replacement name for those features. And it has kind of some set deadlines and requirements for Kagan to follow in the event that a public agency does not provide a replacement name or one was deemed offensive or derogatory. AB 2022 also, as we mentioned a couple times now already, has directed public agencies to engage in formal tribal consultation in the determination of appropriate replacement names. And I have the definition of formal consultation here again, which really requires a timely process for seeking, discussing, and carefully considering the views of others in a manner that is cognizant of all parties' cultural values and where feasible to seek agreement. And you'll see that we have some kind of best practices or guidance on how to engage in that formal consultation for this work. Really, in a way that's mutually respectful of each party's sovereignty or authority. Also recognizing the potential need for confidentiality. Some of these places might be sacred places or have deep significance to tribes, and public agencies, when consulting and engaging with tribes on identifying their replacement names, might receive confidential information that needs to be kept confidential through this process. And so really encouraging you all to think about how you will handle confidential information when going through this process and consulting with tribes. And really, I like early, often, and meaningful. I think it's a great summary of what it means to consult with tribes with that goal of building partnerships, with that goal of collaboratively identifying replacement names in this work. And so formal consultation should occur early in the decision-making process. Communication and consultation meetings should take place often with regular updates on the topics under consultation. And also that decisions made in consultation should be meaningful in guiding the implementation and priorities outlined in AB 2022. So really encouraging you all to reach out to your colleagues at your neighboring tribes and tribes that have ancestral territory that have these places within their ancestral territories. And so really encouraging that early, often, and meaningful consultation with tribes on this work. So I know we kind of went through a lot of that information pretty quickly, but we are excited to answer any questions that you all might have. But in the meantime, we wanted to make sure that you had our best email address. So it's at cacgn@resources.ca.gov. Again, that's kagan@resources.ca.gov. And this is our go-to email. And so if you have any questions in your process of developing consulting with tribes and trying to identify replacement names, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be very happy to connect with you all and identify ways to support you all in this work. Our next slide. Oh, and then also this is our contact information for our chairperson, Richard Liss, as well as myself. Again, we are very happy to be a resource for you all as you're navigating the implementation of AB 2022 in your identification of your SQ termed geographic features and places, as well as working with tribes and identifying appropriate replacement names. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out if there's any questions or if there's any way that we can support you all in this work. And now with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tiffany Meyer, who is our past chairperson of the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names, who's going to walk us through that Microsoft Forms that we mentioned, and the place where you all can submit your SQ name geographic features and places. So with Tiffany, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I can hand it off to you.
Great, thank you, Geneva. I'll see if I can get my screen up and shared. Okay, can everyone see the form?
We can see it.
Great, okay. Okay, I'm Tiffany Meyer, as Geneva mentioned. I'm with CAL FIRE, and so I represent the CAL FIRE seat on the Committee on Geographic Names. Okay, so I just want to walk you guys through how to fill out the form. This is how you would submit a name that needs to be changed. And this is a really cool form because it has a geographic feature to it. So you can put the place where your feature exists. So first of all, what you would want to do is type in the current name of the place. And I'm going to use, there's actually a CAL FIRE station that has the SQ name. So I'm going to use that as my example. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And then I get to say what kind of feature it is. Let's just move down so you can see. So you've got a drop down option. It's a building, fire station. And then I need to say what county it's in. So I'm going to say it's in Fresno County. And we'd like to know if it's in an incorporated city or not. This is in the SQ Valley in Fresno County, so it's not incorporated. If it was incorporated and I clicked yes, then I would get a subset list of all the incorporated cities within the county that I selected up here. But it's not in an incorporated city, so I'm going to uncheck that. Okay, then I'm going to say what affiliation I am. Since I'm with CAL FIRE, I'm a state government, but you have you could be local government, federal government, tribal, and Native American, nonprofit, or if you don't fit into any of those categories, you could be an individual or another. If you're a public agency or tribe, then we'd like a little more detail on that, what tribe you're from, or public agency. And then we need a little information on you so that we can contact you and communicate. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill that out. And a phone number where you can be contacted. Whoops. You can see all the recent phone numbers that I've typed in lately. My email address. This is going to force me to fill in an email address. If I don't put the @ in here, then it's going to say, oh, invalid. So you have to get your email address somewhat correct anyway. It will still take spelling errors. And by the way, if you see this little red star next to a field, then it's required. It's not going to let me submit this form unless all of the fields that have little red stars by them are complete, at least have some information. You can include a recommendation for the replacement name if you have one. If you don't, you can leave that blank. It doesn't have the star, so I can still submit this without a replacement name recommendation. And then any information that you might think would be helpful to us that you have at the point when you fill out this form. Of course, there's going to be more dialogue, so this isn't going to be your last opportunity to give us information, but whatever you think is appropriate. So I'm going to say need to communicate. Yeah, communicate with CAL FIRE. And now here's the geographic part of the application. So I can physically drop a point where that feature is. It's giving me this big red error here because I'm on my computer and my computer doesn't have a GPS unit. If I was filling this form out in on a mobile, in my mobile app, on my phone, mobile application, and my phone has a GPS unit, GPS locator in it, then it would drop a point where I'm filling out the form. So that may or may not be helpful, but you can always move the point to where you want us to know where that feature that you're submitting this application for is located. So I'm just going to uncheck that box to get out of the way, and then I'm going to put the address of this feature into the search bar. So it will take me to where I need to enter the point. Oops. Let's see, I had it pasted. I had it on my clipboard and then I lost it. So let me just type this in. There it is. Okay, so that it takes me right to the feature. And so the feature is going to get dropped where that little pin is. So I could move it. I think this might be the actual station. So I'm just going to move the point closer to the station. And then it automatically enters the lat long, which we will receive on the back end with the form. And that's all you do. And then you can submit it. And it's going to go into our database. And so we can start tracking them. Now, if you have more than one feature, I can enter one and then open up the form again and enter another feature. And so it's pretty simple, straightforward, and that's the beginning of our database to start tracking these features that with the SQ name that we need to start following up on. And that's all I've got. So back to you, Geneva.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for walking us through that.